Smack on make a noise. So, oh, just let's do this. What do this?
Nice.
Some sort of reaction. The boy had just made it to the tree and stopped, presumably about to begin urinating. The entity slowly crept up behind, and I slid up my arm towards it. I wanted to get to it before it was able to grab a hold of me unsuspected.
Ava, how are you
The
managing?
creature was arranged
We
in
placed
its
four
wall.
key support structures
One
into
of
the
its
sector.
supposed legs
Took
extended
some heavy
out
losses
from
in the
below.
process, but
It stretched
we're
itself
holding
to
strong.
the boy, less than a foot from wrapping itself around his skinny neck, without him having a single clue. I quickly got him out and legs and buttocks between them, reaching out with one of my arms and slashing him, causing the encrypted to wail and stumble backwards in surprise as he cried out in pain. The boy turned to see both of us. He was
This
frightened
email's only a few weeks old.
and completely paralyzed, having no idea what to do next, and I didn't blame him. What the hell was that? One of the females said before, letting out a blood-curdling screech. We gotta go. It's been struck now. Another chimed in, just as frightened as the rats. They quickly began to run off and retreat. Now leaving me alone with the other cryptid.
I'm entering the North Sector.
The server you're looking for is downstairs.
I prayed to escape.
Fuck.
What is it?
I've got two black spiral dancers on my screen. They're waiting for you.
Black spirals. Good. I've got an old score to settle.
The humans are not left alone. Leave me. I growled. Their foolishness. They taste magnificent. Tell me what you've done.
So, Watkins has sent his dogs to
The
you.
entity which can get another was so listen, much faster, less
This planet's two black spiral branches cleaner.
You okay to keep going?
I've got no choice.
We're at the last step. You've got to disconnect the server. It'll allow me to open your path to Adana.
And I latched my jaws into it, biting down hard and not letting go. The entity screamed once again, extending out more of its legs to attack me. I swatted them away with my claws, as I thrashed and snapped my jaws repeatedly on the one of my mouth, repeatedly biting over and over until I had finally discovered it. Once it had been disconnected, I grabbed what was still left of the first one on my shoulder, and pulled it out while forcefully gritting my teeth and growling at the ground below me. It smelled like crazy, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. In a bipedal stance, I took a couple of steps back. The cryptid and I now both being wounded meant that we were going to do anything we could to kill the other one and walk out of this alive. Perhaps you are stronger than what I had previously predicted. He laughed tauntingly. I quickly latched onto one of the trees next to me, only crawling halfway up before leaping to the one next to it, repeating the process over and over until I got closer to him. He tried and failed multiple times to grab me as I was moving from tree to tree, going far too quick for his legs to reach me. I could hear him snarling under his breath, cursing himself for not being able to stop my repetitive jumping and leaping. Once I had gotten onto the tree closest to him, the cryptid had backed up, clearly understanding my intentions. He reached out with one of those legs one last time, to which I countered the last second by snapping a large branch off the tree and holding it in front of me, deflecting his limb. I then threw the branch at the body of the creature, hitting him directly in the middle of his body and causing him to fall backward. I seized the opportunity by jumping from the tree and bouncing on him, quickly holding him down while I swiped my claws at his throat for the final and very much fatal attack. His screams were a hissing gurgle, despite the fact he didn't even seem to have any sort of blood or liquid that would indicate signs of a wound. But I could tell these were his last few breaths. Why? He pleaded. The arrogance that he had displayed earlier now slowly fading from his demeanor. In only a matter of minutes, his confidence had completely disappeared, now being replaced with pessimistic acceptance.
Go get her back.
You tried to take their lives, so I took yours, I snapped. They did nothing to earn your wrath. What even are you? He gasped in his last few seconds of life. My name is Braun. I felt his body go limp in the grip of my claws, signaling that he had drawn his last breath and his heart had stopped, if he even had one. The truth was, I didn't care, because I was hungry to feed once again. I needed to eat. This was a blessing in disguise. I glanced behind and to these sides of me, making sure no humans or other cryptids were around to witness my feast. I tore into the creature greedily. I hadn't eaten anything since the previous day, and let me tell you, my appetite was not easily satisfied. I had devoured most of his legs and took a decent chunk of his head. That was the thickest part of him after all.
Your friends too.
The texture of his flesh was unlike anything I had felt before. He didn't even taste all that great, but I kept at it nonetheless. Luckily, his lack of blood would leave less evidence for the agency to find if they had scouted this particular area. That was the main thing that I cared about. But to my deeply frustrating surprise, I heard the sudden sound of a twig snap in the distance behind me. It wasn't very far. I got angry with myself internally for not dragging the beast somewhere more secluded before I had started feasting. Whatever had made the sound was close. Definitely close enough to see what was going on. I stopped consuming my meal and dropped what remained of the creature's body, trying to look around for the source of the noise. At first, I was confused. My vision had been designed to be highly effective in the dark. I would have seen whatever was around me without much trouble, unless it was an entity that possessed the ability to cloak itself. I had run into a few of those back when I was still with the agency. I decided to look slightly lower. Looking straight ahead for my height did slightly limit my line of sight. It only took me a few moments to spot a bipedal silhouette crouching down behind a line of thick bushes. It didn't appear very large, height or width-wise. I cautiously lowered myself onto all fours and walked off to the left to circle around the figure and give myself the advantage. After breaking past the line of bushes and onto the other side, I was able to get a better picture of the creature who had been watching me.
Ultra Fire cervical care pillow. Even orthopedic doctors are using it. Orthopedic X.
It was only a human, a male at that, holding a small rectangular-shaped metal object in one of his hands, pointing it directly at me. A cell phone, I thought. I used to hear the soldiers of the agency talk about and use them all the time, but I had never actually seen one up close or in person. But it looked mostly like what I had expected. The closest thing to it I had ever come in contact with was the cameras the agency had used to keep a watch on the premises of our building. The man froze. He was clearly terrified at seeing me, even more than the boy from earlier. Not that I could help it, but I wanted to use that to my advantage. I had a plan in mind. I withdrew my claws, allowing them to gleam in the moonlight, which only frightened him further, causing him to involuntarily raise his arms to shield himself. What are you? His voice trembled. He backed up slowly, being hasty and careful with his movements. Leave now, I growled, baring my teeth. I reached out and pointed one of my lengthy fingernails at his cell phone. Drop it, I demanded. Please don't eat me. I mean no harm, I swear, please. He pleaded as he let his cell phone hit the ground. I will tear the flesh from your bones if you don't go. Now, I said, retracting my claws to enhance the blob. He finally turned tail and ran. I was pretty sure that I could hear him tearing up as he dashed through the forest, clearly deeply disturbed about our encounter. I crawled over to the cell phone. It was still seemingly turned on. The screen displayed a video, which was something I was previously familiar with, but no expert by any means. Like I said, I had seen some of the guards in the facility operate them, but I had never done it myself. The video depicted me and the other creature that I had killed in order to protect the campers and feed myself. It recorded everything up until I had run up on all fours and stood in front of the man. He was videotaping the whole thing, even as we had fought each other to the death. I knew what needed to be done. I let the cell phone rest in the center of my palm for just a few seconds, right before clamping down and crushing it with brute strength. I opened my hand back up to find it cracked and broken into several pieces. The last thing I needed was the agency getting a hold of that. It was evidence, and it may seem extreme when I say it, but they would surely be able to track down my location if they were to find it. They had been careful now to show me the full extent of their technological power. I didn't want to risk finding out. They already knew that I was in this forest, That video would have been the final nail in the coffin if they saw it. I had planned to get out of here by the end of the night. It wouldn't be long before they would pay off the government officials to close this place down, so they could set up teams to watch the exits and entrances. That is, if they hadn't already. At which point, I'd be completely trapped. The only way to get out would be to fight, and I would for sure have to fight to kill. I didn't want to shed so much blood when I didn't have to. I dug a hole in the ground using my hands, just deep enough to bury the remains of the crushed cell phone. This time, being extra careful to make sure that nothing was watching me. After which I got up and started my journey to get out of here. It took me a few hours to make it to the south end of the forest. The terrain had varied a lot during the journey. The main issue was just making sure I didn't cross any paths with more campers or hikers. I could see past the tree line and out into the highway. A mostly empty highway at that. All I needed to do was be patient and cross at the right time.
Good.
Every second turned into a minute as I approached it, getting closer little by little. Now, shouted a forceful voice from one behind one of the trees. I quickly stood up on two legs, trying to gauge who had said the phrase, only to be met with sounds of multiple guns cocking and being loaded in all directions at me. In all my life, I had never been shot before. I wasn't sure if bullets were something that could harm me, but I didn't go down the foolish route and take the risk. I simply stood still and got down in a surrendering stance. Men from the agency were completely surrounding me, all geared up with night vision goggles and gas masks, completely armed to the teeth for a fight. They weren't playing around. Gas him. Dr. West wants him alive. One of these squad members proceeded to throw a small canister in front of me. It exploded and released a powerful yellow vapor that swiftly spread itself in the air and seeped into my orifices, causing me to slowly become weaker and lose my strength as the gas filled my lungs. I felt dizzy. Everything around me was spinning, and I collapsed onto my back, unable to fight the gas and stay conscious. The sounds of footsteps and men all shouting a victorious chant were the last things